Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be sewing up a cute and simple apron. Let's jump into it. Use this fabric for the skirt, and I have 1.5 yards that I will be using. I ended up cutting my fabric in half, and the height is 18 inches, and I'm going to be cutting it by 22 because I only want the apron to be on the front side, so I just measured it myself and I got 22 inches, and that's where I liked it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just measure 22. So the bottom, and you're not gonna need all of the 1.5 yards that I had cut, that I had gotten. So you can use less or you can get that amount, up to you. One piece that we'll be using is going to be 13 inches in height. So in height is 13 by 15 in length. Okay, and again, you can choose your own measurements. Okay, so the next cut that I have is the string that's going to go on the bottom of the skirt. And this one I cut 6 by 22 because it's the same size as the skirt. So it's going to go on the bottom. And then I made 2 cuts for the string for the waist. This is going to be your bow. And I made 6 by 41 inches. So 6 inches in height and 41 in length. And I cut 2 pieces for these. And then next is going to be the neck. Now the neck is your preference of how long you want it to be. So I put the front piece already where I would want it once I put it on myself. And I actually measured all the way around where I would want how long I would want the strap to be for the neck, and I would be cutting it 22 inches in length and 5 inches in height. And I want to make sure that I have some extra fabric on each side, so that when I sew it here on the top, then at least I have a little bit left over. I'm going to show you how it will look like. My strap, I already cut it 5 inches in height and then 22 inches in length, and that's how it would be looking like. Again, you can make your own measurements of how thick you want it and how long you would want it as well. The first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the bottom string that's going to go on the bottom of my skirt. And if you do not want to add something on the bottom, then what you would do is you would just do a double fold on the bottom of the skirt. And once you do a double fold like this, then you're going to sew all the way across if you do not want to add something. Now if you want to add it, what we're going to do is, this is my top, this is going to be the top of my skirt, and I'm going to go ahead and I actually iron down the fabric so it could be easier for me to just fold it, and it has a nice little crease. And I'm going to go ahead and just connect it all the way across. And again, if you cut more fabric in length, then you would just need to cut more for the bottom of the string so everything can measure correctly. So that way the bottom is going to be the same length as the bottom fabric that you add. Now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew all the way across. Sewed the bottom part that I want, and again, this is going to be the front. So I'm going to go ahead and just open it up like this. Now since I don't want to see this mess here, I want to add some bias tape to be able to cover it up here in the front. And then I'm just going to go all the way across by covering this up right here. Now if you do not have bias tape, then you can go ahead and you can do it with the same fabric, or if you do not want to see this mess, then you would have been able to sew it the other way around so that this can be on the back side. So for example, if I want this to be the front, then you would have it like this. You would sew it on the opposite direction. And all you would have to do is just stitch up here, give it a nice top stitch, and this would be your bottom. But since I wanted to add this bias tape, I'm going to be using this side, and this is what's going to be my front. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bias tape here in the front. Sewed up part of the bias tape. This is how you would sew it on here. You would open it up and sew it all the way across. Now that you have that, you're going to now flip it over, and you're going to be now covering this side. Now, since this side is going to be the front, I'm going to now open it up, and I'm actually going to be sewing it like this. I'm going to open it, and now I'm going to sew it all the way across like this so it can stay in place with this being the front. If you sew it like this, then it's going to stay in place like this, and you will not be able to push it out from this side. So I'm going to go ahead and just open it up like this, and then go all the way across so it can stay in place, this being the front. Okay, so I already sewed it on, and it's already intact. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the belt. So for the straps, what I'm going to do is I wanted to give it that nice bow look at the end. So at the on one of the sides, I ended up doing a slanted line all the way across, and same thing for the other strap, all the way across. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew where I made my line, and then all the way across at the very end, and I'm going to leave this section opened because I'm going to pull out my strap, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with my other strap as well. Already sewed all the way across, all the way to the other end, and I left this as the opening so that way I can pull out my belt. Now I want to give it a nice look, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut the extra off. That way it's not that bulky when I turn it inside out. And then here as well, want to make sure that it's not that bulky. And I'm just going to cut all the way across. Once you do that, we're just going to turn it inside out. And then you can go to your iron if you want and iron this down so you can have a nice look at the end. And you have a nice little edge like a bow at the end. Okay, so I have my straps already done for the belt, and before we connect everything, I'm going to move on to my neck, the neck strap that we're going to be using. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew from the top all the way down, and then I'm going to be bringing it inside out. My neck string already done, put that to the side. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be adding the top. Now remember, it's going to be 13 in height, and it's going to be 15 in length. I think I had said 18 in the beginning, but it's not 18. It's 13 by 15. But again, you can modify it. You can do whatever size you like. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be adding it right in the middle. And then once I place it in the middle between both, I'm going to go to my sewing machine so I can add it. And now I'm going to leave it like this because again, I'm going to be adding the bias tape all the way across to give it a nice look how I had done it on the bottom of my skirt. So that way it can match on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip these down. and then go to the sewing machine to sew it up. Already sewed it up, they're connected, and now again, just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and open up my bias tape, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to be clipping it. Already sewed all the way across, and now I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go around and then clip it down, so that way I can cover up the mess in the back. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and just sew all the way across. That I have sewed this part here, what I'm going to do next is going to add now my straps, the belt straps, and I'm going to place the first one here. And then the other one on the other side. Now, in this part, you can continue putting bias tape all the way around if you like, but if you do not want to do bias tape, then all we're going to do is now we're just going to actually fold it in. So now I'm going to take off the clip. Give it a nice hem. And then same thing, I'm just going to go all the way down and fold it in. And you can do double hem, or you can do one, or if you have a serger, you can just go ahead and pass it through the serger. And then if not, then you can do a zigzag stitch with your regular machine, or you can even do a straight stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I did here on this side. I'm going to do the same thing on this side as well. I folded it one time only, and I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and sew all the way across, and then on this side as well. Sewed up the edges on both sides. Now we're going to work on the top. Now for the top, since I do not want to use a bias tape all the way around as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn it around, and I'm going to fold it just like how I had done with the other one, and we're going to be clipping it down, and then we're going to be adding our neck strap. And I think with this step, we could have done this first before stitching it up to the bottom there. I was going to be using bias tape, but then in the last minute I ended up changing my mind. That way I can have the bias tape only on the bottom, middle, and at the top. Okay, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew these two sections here. We trimmed, stitched up the edges here on the side. Now the next thing would be adding the neck strap, and for this it's your preference of however you want it. So wherever you like it to be, that's what you're going to choose. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to clip it like this together. And then this side as well. I'm gonna flip it open like this, flip this one like this, and I'm going to, since this is going to be holding my apron, I'm just gonna go back and forth a couple of times, and then to cover up this edge, I'm going to now cover it with the bias tape as well. For my neck strap, I actually ended up doing cutting the neck strap actually to 18. So 20 was a little too big for me, but again, you can always change it to whatever size you like as your preference. Mine was 18, and then I stitched up about 3/4 on each side. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my bias tape all the way across on the top,
and then I'll be done. I finished the apron with the top section. However, I tried it on and I didn't like that this was sticking out. It looked kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be folding it down like a little triangle. And I'm just going to sew here the sections, and then that way we can have a nice little trim on both of these edges. And then lastly, I actually wanted to, it looked kind of plain, so I wanted to add a pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a pocket here all the way across. And I will show you the measurements for this one. And this is going to be 19 in length and about 6 inches in height. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to be ironing down the bottom here to give it a nice look. And then I'm also going to do it on this side and on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and iron it down so that way when I sew it on the front here, it would have a nice look to it instead of having all of these little fabrics sticking out. So since this is going to be my bottom, I only folded it one time. And since this is going to be my top, I did a double fold so that when I put it on here, it has a nice look. Now, if you want your pocket to be longer, then you can just give it more inches in height. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew down this and then I'm going to be folding this on the sides.
Then you just turn it around and sew it on the
And you are done with your apron. So I ended up actually sewing down the middle here so I can get 2 pockets. And you have your nice little bow. And I ended up sewing the corners. How you can see that. And this is how it would look like. And you're all done. Hopefully you guys like the tutorial and hopefully you guys like it and subscribe for more videos.